Hey everybody, and how are you guys doing tonight? This is Joe Marin here with Mobile Cup of Joe's What's Brewing, our weekly Hangouts on Air show that we do the slow production here for you guys every week, every Friday at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Alvie, the bearded barista, is out for the night. He's spending some time with his kid, so go ahead and hit him up on the socials and tell him that you're missing him and the baby beard. So go ahead and let him know that we're going to be missing him tonight. But we actually have a really solid list of things to talk about. We've got some news about, obviously, Android Marshmallow was announced today. We're going to talk about what we think of the name, how we think about Google making the big jump from 5.1 all the way to 6.0 with the new update. We've got some details on Google's new wireless router they released called OnHub. Some leaks of a very nice-sounding Microsoft Surface phone, which I know Patrick sounded very interested in earlier before we went live. And then we've got a little interesting story involving both AT&T and the NSA that I tried to read about, but it was very beyond what I was looking to read at the time that Chuck shared the link with me, so he'll go ahead and share the story with us. It looks very interesting, but it was beyond what I was looking to comprehend for reading at the time he shared it with me. Joining us tonight, as usual, we have the Brew Crew you know and love. Going left to right, ones and zeros himself, Chuck Haines. How are you doing this past week? What's been going on?
I am doing good. Actually, it's been a kind of a jam-packed week. I have officially dumped Verizon. I am now actually on Twitter, T-Mobile. So, yeah, I was just saying on Twitter. Of course I'm on Twitter. So, yeah, so jumped to T-Mobile. Took advantage of their iPhone deal. So I've actually been rocking an iPhone for the last, I guess, week now. Or has it been a week and a half, 2 weeks? I'm not sure. And kind of liking it, actually. Although I am going to switch back to the Nexus 6 for a little while just as a comparison on T-Mobile. So that's kind of been what I've been doing.
Well, Chuck, it's been fun having you on the Brew Crew, but I'll expect your 2 weeks notice by the end of the show. So thanks for joining us. It's been a fun time having you on the show. Moving on to an actual loyal Android user, we do have Mr. Fred Scholl himself. No trash against the iPhones. They're good devices if you like them. Just gotta give Chuck some hate because that's what we do here. Going next, we do have Fred Scholl back from the dead. Fred, what's been going on with you this past week, man? Maybe. Okay.
I think Fred's still having some audio issues.
We're having some audio issues, so I just put the camera on Fred for a few seconds to make him uncomfortable. But now we do have our special guest for the night, Mr. Patrick Campanelli from Gadget Spot, joining us to fill in the position of Alvie Rodgers, even though I see he did not grow his beard to the extent we are used to. So how have you been doing since you've last been on the show?
Been doing good. Started a new job. I'm now the head repair tech at a cell phone repair shop, so that's been fun. Actually been doing a lot of development work with Carbon. A lot of you guys might know Carbon ROM. I am one of the co-owners of it now. We've gone through a lot of changes. A lot of things are going to be happening very soon if you've been waiting, and been working a lot with Huawei, a name you guys might not be familiar with if you don't really follow foreign smartphones all that much. They're trying to, kind of creep into the U.S. market, but I've really been liking using their products.
Very cool, very cool. Well, we're definitely excited to have you back on the show because it's been a few months since we last had you on. So, thanks for hopping on kind of last second there, even though I am disappointed with the lack of the beard growth we had between our last conversation on Hangouts.
I tried.
But going next to him, we do have Spec Sheet Tony himself, who did a very nice dance to Can't Feel My Face before he hopped on here, and I was hoping he'd do it again for us, but I don't think we're going to see that. So aside from that, how has your week been going?
Well, copyright issues, we don't want our video taken down or banned in Germany. No, I've been doing really well. I'm still just enjoying the last little bit of good weather before the pool closes here at the end of the month. And other than that, nothing really new to report. Just really waiting. I have two Kickstarter campaigns that I'm just anxiously awaiting one of them to end and the other one to ship. So I backed Snaps with the magnetic charger for the phone, and I backed the Remix Mini. So I'm waiting for both of those to come in the mail. I'm very excited. The Remix Mini campaign's still open, and I think right now you can get the 2 GB model for $40, so like $55 after shipping. Highly recommend that you go out there. We've loved Remix. Remix has been a huge supporter of the show, sending Alvie and I out Remix tablets when they heard that we didn't get into the Kickstarter campaign that the rest of the guys did. So go find Remix Mini on Kickstarter. If you can't afford the $55 to get the 2 GB model, throw them a buck, throw them a couple bucks. Support them because they've been awesome to us.
Speaking of Remix, Joe, do you want to tease a little something we might be considering here?
Yeah, so speaking actually of the Remix Mini, well, we got a couple kind of Remix things we're teasing. Speaking of the Remix Mini PC that's on the Kickstarter campaign, my mom actually went ahead and backed it because she had my old iPad Air, but she wants something that's a bit more intuitive for her to use, something she can multitask on. So she went ahead and went to back one, the 2 GB RAM model, because just in case you don't know, there's actually 2 versions of the Remix Mini PC. One of them is kind of a lower end at 1 GB of RAM, then there's another one that has more storage and stuff and has 2 gigs of RAM. So she went ahead and backed one of those, but she was very awesome and like Mother of the Year. Went ahead and backed a second one for us to actually give away here on the show when they do come in. So I think that shipments are expected around October timeframe or so. So whenever that gets here, once we have like a kind of a fun milestone to include it with, we will be able to give away a Remix Mini PC and possibly another Remix Ultra tablet, depending on how things go, if Chuck wants to let loose of that thing or not. So yeah, as for me, we'll get to Fred in a second because it looks like he's back. For me personally, backed the Remix Mini PC on Kickstarter, or my mom did, I guess. And I got in the Microsoft Lumia 735, even though I called it the Nokia Lumia 735 for like half of the video. So far, it's been a really nice handset. It's about $200 unlocked. It's currently available on Verizon Wireless. I've really been impressed with it so far. It's kind of like the Windows Phone version of Emoji is what I've been kind of seeing it as. Nothing crazy impressive, you know, a 6.7 megapixel camera, 2,220 milliamp hour battery, 4.7-inch 720p HD display. It's been a really nice phone. I'm on my second day of kind of like light to moderate use on it so far, so we won't be doing an espresso shot review of it tonight, but if you have any questions about it in general, feel free to comment on this video or comment on the unboxing video, which just went up today. But aside from that, my week has been kind of quiet, just enjoying the weather, like Tony said before. Summer finally goes out. But that's it for me, though. Let's go ahead and see what Back from the Dead Fred is doing since his audio equipment is hopefully working now.
Back from the dead, and can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little muffled there.
Barely.
How about now?
I'm just getting a little feedback.
Okay. Yeah, well, yes, Back from the Dead and Back from Silence, both. It's been, well, I was going to say a quiet week up here in New Jersey, which is a bad pun at this point, but it is quiet, kind of late summer and end of summer up here, and not too much exciting going on. I did get the Windows 10 installation complete and driver situation straightened out, so I'm right side up this week. And let's see, what can I say that's exciting here? I've got a product which is in line for review and hopefully a video, which is a really cool thing I picked up from people that I met at CE Week in New York City, which is called the Ozobot Bit. Ozobot Bit is the next generation of a device called Ozobot, which is somewhere between I guess something of an educational toy. It's a very small robot. I don't have it near the camera right now, but it's a very small robot which is programmable and designed to teach kids programming, and they're doing some real cool stuff with it, and this is the second generation one. And I'll be excited to show that to everybody once I sink my teeth into it a little bit. And I guess that's about all the New Jersey news that's fit to print at the moment.
Well, very cool. So yeah, we're glad you're facing the right direction, like facing the right orientation with your camera this week. So awesome to have you on the show as always. And before we get into our news topics, I've been wanting to tout this company on our show for quite a few weeks now, but just with getting all of our chickens in a row and getting everything situated, trying to get back in the swing of things, finally didn't have time until this week. But I do want to give a massive shout out to the folks over at Something Geeky, because we've talked about them on shows about a couple months ago, and Something Geeky is actually our official creator and seller of officially licensed Mobile Cup of Joe shirts and merchandise. Just go to somethinggeeky.com and look for our logo down here in their little scroll bar. Go ahead and click on the Mobile Cup of Joe logo, and we've got hoodies, we've got long sleeve shirts, we have sweatshirts, tall latte mugs, regular size mugs, some t-shirts, both women's and men's. So go ahead and take a look through there. We're still working on some different t-shirt colors, some variations of the logo, but there are still some really awesome products on there. We get a small kickback for everything we sell, so definitely feel free to check it out. And there's really no better way to watch Mobile Cup of Joe than watching it while sipping out of either your Mobile Cup of Joe mug or your tall latte mug. So thank you very much for Something Geeky for making bad butt shirts and stuff and coffee mugs and whatnot. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into the news because we have got some very cool freshly brewed news. And first up on the list, we've got some stuff about OnHub, which is a new wireless router that Google released. And I'll go ahead and let Fred take the reins, or Chuck take the reins of this one, since he's kind of our ones and zeros guy, and this isn't the most exciting consumer product. But after he explains it, you're probably going to be pretty interested in it. From what I've read so far and from what I understand so far, it actually sounds like something that could be pretty cool if it turns out to deliver on the promises it's making.
So this should be your most exciting product of the year, or one of them, if it delivers what it's supposed to deliver. So Google announced this week basically their own Wi-Fi router. Those of you guys who watch the show won't bore you with what a Wi-Fi router is. Most of you guys know. So what's unique about this thing? Well, if you're like me, most consumer-based Wi-Fi routers, 6 months, a year later, they're just toast. You're always buying them. You're always rebooting them. There's always some kind of problem. It's very, very difficult to find a stable consumer wireless router that you don't have a ton of trouble with. I think the Asus ones that I've had, the AC series, is about the only ones I've ever had I've had any luck with. So Google is releasing their own wireless router. The premise is that it is supposed to be the fastest Wi-Fi that you can get, easy to set up, it's self-configuring, and it's just supposed to take the hassle out of wireless routers, setting them up, and just being a pain. And they're also saying that it looks beautiful. So, unlike that, weird, wireless router with antennas sticking everywhere that you try and shove in a closet, this is actually a piece that you could put in your living room, and probably no one would ever be the wiser that that's actually what it is. What's really unique about this is, well, two things. One, they've actually got a circular antenna design. They support both 802.11 on the 2 gigahertz as well as the 5 gigahertz, BGN and AC, which is the newest Wi-Fi standard. The unique thing about having the circular antenna array is it allows you to put this in the center of your house and really get that wireless spectrum, distributed out through your house. According to them, they actually have a special antenna that's designed just for congestion control. What that will do is if you're in a crowded neighborhood where other people have 2 gigahertz routers around, it will actually be intelligent enough to be able to switch channels and kind of configure your router to not interrupt those or get the best signal that you can. So they're really touting the intelligence of this device, being able to self-configure the actual antenna arrays, as far as the strength goes and stuff, to really optimize your wireless experience, which is kind of cool. I'll be interested to see how well it works in premise, because there's been a lot of wireless routers that have kind of sold themselves as being intelligent and being able to configure stuff, and half of them don't work. The other nice part is instead of having some crude web page that you log into to set up your router, there's actually going to be an app that you use to set everything up, which is kind of a neat little take on things. Supposed to be easy, supposed to kind of give you information like is there a bad connection somewhere in your house? Is some device flooding your internet? And really just kind of make the whole thing easy. One final thing, and I think this is something a lot of people haven't covered necessarily, is in addition to being a wireless router, it also includes a number of technologies designed for smart homes. And the three that it supports here is the Bluetooth Smart Ready Weave, which for those of you guys who may or may not know is kind of Google's attempt at smart home and smart home communication, and then 802.15.4, which I believe is Zigbee, which a lot of things are using. So in addition to being your kind of internet hub, they also are really looking, I think, to move into the smart home, and this is kind of their first foray into giving you an affordable device that's going to allow you to connect all your kind of smart home components. So I've pre-ordered one. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think it's going to be kind of cool, and I want to see if it really lives up to what they're touting it.
Yeah, like from what you've said so far, it sounds like a really, really impressive router, and especially having like the convenience of the application on your phone that's got the nice material design support right there. And it's like directly from Google, so it should like work really nicely with Android devices and such like that. So, do you think $200 is too high of a price for most people to spend on a wireless router? Okay.
Absolutely not. So the best consumer routers that you can buy right now, ones that you're not going to throw away in 6 months, are in the $250 to $350 range. So $200, if this thing lives up to its name, is actually cheap for a good, dependable home router.
But you are losing, and this is the one thing that I am not a fan of with the OnHub, is you only have one Ethernet port. And I mean, there's multiple devices that are right next to my router that if I'm going to be spending $200 on a router, I'm also then going to have to buy a gig switch to put next to it so I can plug multiple things into it.
I agree. I know a lot of people were disappointed the fact that it only had one Ethernet port on it, but I think unfortunately in this day, and this is the same reason that no laptop these days, or very few come with Ethernet ports anymore, is the average consumer doesn't use Ethernet. So tech people like you and I, yeah, we want the extra ports because we want the fast stuff. But then again, if this thing's got AC built in, which is faster, which is as fast, if not faster, than gig internet anyway. So, you know, I don't know. I can understand. I understand that a lot of people want that. Me personally, I actually don't think I have a single thing plugged in hardwire anymore. So for me, I'm not worried about it. But I could understand how that could be a concern for a lot of people.
How about Fred or Tony? What do you guys think about it?
You want to take it, Fred?
Yeah, am I back now?
You are.
Yep.
Yeah, sound good.
Excellent. All right, I can hear you. You can hear me. I haven't really spent too much time with it. As far as Ethernet, I am on Ethernet right now, and while I have Wi-Fi in the house, I enjoy the speed. So yeah, I'd be missing it personally.
What about you, Tony, spec sheet?
Sorry, I thought someone was opening my door. We're trying. No, the only thing I say is, and I'm using the T-Mobile CellSpot as my main router, which is I think it's like $100 or $120 router when you buy it outright. So it's a decent router, but I didn't pay anything for it. What?
No, the AC68 that should be a $250 router.
Yeah, it's $250 or right around there, $200 to $250.
Well, still, it's a high price router. Now, before I had this, I had a $30 gaming router, and it was just a Belkin, I think. And I work from home, use internet all the time. So I'm, probably the prime example of someone who is tech oriented but didn't care to spend that much on a router. And I know a lot of people, in fact, I don't think I know another person, other than my dad, who is a computer programmer. I don't think I know another person who owns their own equipment. Everyone else I know has whatever crap their internet provider gave them. So I think spending $200 on a router is going to be out of the question for most regular users. I don't think that anyone's going to do it. But that's not who that this is for. And good on them for developing something that's going to help out, especially Google Fi users who are really in need of an expensive router to fully take advantage of what they're getting.
Yeah, I have the CellSpot too, and I do have to say I absolutely love it so far. I had the AC66 before the CellSpot, and the CellSpot's basically a step up from that, and it is pretty awesome. But I just want to say, if you are someone who's using the crap that your ISP gave you, please stop. Call your favorite tech person and have them come set something up for you. The reason I say this is not because, well, I do care about you, but I care about me. And if you're my neighbor and you've got some access point that's blasting out 2.4, too strong, it's killing my Wi-Fi. So I think it's a selfish thing. Call your local tech person and save your neighbors.
This is Chuck's public service announcement.
But okay. To speak to that, though, I have a CellSpot, and I'm using the Comcast Access Point 3, which is an AC 1750 router. So it's a dual band, and it gives 1750 meg throughput. So it is on the level of the AC68 that the cell spot is, but it's provided by Comcast. And you can go in and you can shut down those access points.
Yeah, okay.
So
Well-
now if you're using the AP1, which is the one that they set everybody up with, obviously they give everybody the cheap stuff. Yeah, you might want to try switching it out. But most carriers, you can call them up and you can request a better router and they will upgrade it at no charge. We went from the AC1 to the AC3, which was a single band just an N to a dual band AC.
Well, are you guys good on routers? I'm sorry, but I like talking about routers, but I know it's not the most exciting thing, and as much of a tech nerd as I am, I'm starting to want to move on. So going on from the routers, Google's got a router, and it looks really cool and pretty, and it kind of looks like an Amazon Echo. But going on from that, we do have some news that I know Patrick expressed some interest in. I'm kind of curious to see how Chuck feels about this too, after having owned the Microsoft Surface 3. So I'll share some screenshots here in a second after I list off the specs, but we basically got some leaked screenshots of a device that is supposedly going to be a Surface phone for Microsoft. We got a leak with a model number saying that's Juggernaut Alpha, with some more details, OEM being Microsoft. And I'll go ahead and share the screenshot now since I'm talking about it. We have a new leak of what's really just a render, kind of a concept of what the Surface phone is supposedly going to look like with the unibody aluminum design and all that good stuff. Now, as for the actual specs for this thing that were released this week, we're looking at 5.5-inch Quad HD display, like is kind of standard nowadays for smartphone displays. 64-bit Intel chip for the processor, 21 megapixel rear-facing camera, 8 megapixel front, 3 or 4 gigabyte of RAM variants, 64 or 128 gigabytes of storage with micro SD card expansion, USB Type-C wireless charging, the Surface Pen, and supposedly called the Surface Mobile when it launches. Now, all that sounds fantastic, but I just want to know if, Chuck, I know you've had the Surface 3 for a while now, and after owning a Surface device, do you think that there's room for Microsoft's hardware for a Surface phone, given the app ecosystem what it is right now for the Windows Phone platform? Because I've really been liking the Lumia 735, but there's still the situation of applications. So do you think having like the hardware side of things from a Surface product would be enough to sell a device like this, given the issues we've seen from Windows Phone in the past?
Yes, and let me tell you why. Windows 10's launched. The same app that an app developer makes for Windows 10 will run on this device. So Microsoft
Wow.
is immediately opening up their app ecosystem with the launch of Windows 10 and the launch of this device. So yeah, is it still going to have all the apps you got on Android? No, you're not going to have any Google apps. So I think that in itself is probably severely limiting to a lot of people. But I do think that Microsoft stands a better chance with this, simply because Windows 10 is on how many millions of PCs, which means app developers are going to make apps for Windows 10, which means they're going to run on this device as well. So Microsoft is essentially getting the apps for their phones for free now.
Yeah, like there's no denying the handset itself is a gorgeous looking phone. There's just always been that issue in the past with Windows Phone devices, like especially the Lumia 1520 or the Lumia 1020, where yeah, you've got a really beefy phone here, but then if your software is lacking, there's still that problem. But Patrick, I know you said you were like pretty surprised and pretty interested, and you perked up when I was talking about this. If this Surface phone is legit and these specs are real and it comes out unibody metal design, these high-end specs, would you consider purchasing a Windows Phone 10 device amidst all of the Android Marshmallow and iOS, what are we on, 9 now? What's coming out? I don't know. Amidst all the other big smartphones that are out, would you still consider purchasing a Windows Phone 10 device if it was a Surface product made by Microsoft?
Considering I have 5 Windows Phone devices within arm's reach, yes. I've got a 1020, 1520, 920, 640, 521, and I think I've got a couple others somewhere else. So I'm a huge Windows Phone person. I've loved it since its beginning. I would run meetups in Tennessee with Microsoft. We gave away phones. We won phones. I've been with Windows Phone since early 2012. I absolutely love it. And everybody would always go on about apps, and there was some lacking. but Windows Phone was the first platform to have a third-party Instagram client with Upload. They were the first mobile platform to have a third-party Google Plus application. I mean, there was a lot of firsts that were done on Windows Phone. And with Windows Phone 10, just like Chuck was saying, you're going to have that cross-app compatibility. Now, does Windows Phone really need these specs? No. It works fine on 1 to 2 gig of RAM with much lower end processors. So I am super excited to see how it's going to function with this, and especially with being USB Type-C, Microsoft sticking with wireless charging, Surface Pen. I don't know how I'm going to like that. That's going to be really interesting that they're going to take away space from battery to put a pen when I don't really think it needs it.
Well, I don't know if they're going to do that, or if you look at the Surface Pro 3 and the Surface 3, they sell the pen separately.
That's true.
They have an optional accessory, so I guess they do something similar along those lines if they do actually include it.
Which I just got one of this week. Unfortunately, it's upstairs. Otherwise, I would show it to you guys. But it's really cool.
But yeah, if they go that way, that'd be awesome. And then the storage options, like Joe said, 64 and 128 gig of internal. I mean, this will be one of the first phones that I can think of that started off at a 64 gig base. And it's got a micro SD card slot. That's amazing. Motorola, Samsung, take note. This is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Well, and I tell you why they're up in the specs here. Something they announced when they announced Windows, and I don't remember what they called it. I'm going to call it continuity for lack of a better thing, and I forget what it's called. But essentially what they're driving for, and I'm sure this phone is going to be the first fruition of that, is a phone that when docked becomes an actual PC. So when you dock this thing into some kind of keyboard attachment, or you plug it into a keyboard and a monitor, you're going to be running full-blown Microsoft Office on this, not the mobile version, full-blown desktop Microsoft Office. And I bet this device is the first fruition we see of that.
So then will you be running full-blown Windows 10 on this device, or will it be Windows Phone 10?
I don't know if they gave details on that or not. I'd have to go look up what it was. I don't remember if it was full-blown Windows 10 when you docked or not. But that'd be kind of awesome.
It would be, but and that would warrant the extra storage space to have Windows Phone and Windows installed alongside each other. But I don't know how well that would work. That would be in theory it sounds awesome, but I wonder how well that would work in practice.
I don't think you'd need them both installed. You'd just need a phone view for Windows 10. Like your apps list would be the only thing that's really going to be different. No desktop view on the phone screen. Sorry, Fred. Go ahead.
Well, it's not just the view, as I'm learning from the remix. View is really just user experience, but there's a difference between desktop versions of apps and mobile versions of apps. So if the Surface phone is a Surface device and it's running actual Windows 10 programs as opposed to Windows Phone apps, it'll transfer over differently. As I've learned with the remix, hooking it up to the keyboard, setting it up in desktop mode does not really turn it into a desktop. You're still using the mobile version of Chrome. Right-clicking doesn't give you the same results. You don't have the same functionality. So if they're giving you full-blown Microsoft Office, if you get a full-blown, fully functional desktop browser, you can run fully functional email clients if you want to do that sort of thing, then you've got a viable productivity tool, and it's going to put them way ahead of Android in that regard, because Remix is kind of the closest thing we've got to that in terms of Android. And Android tablets themselves are typically far behind what's going on with the other OSs. But I think it could be a great move for Microsoft if they finally do what we've been looking for a long time, which is a mobile phone that actually turns into a desktop when you dock it.
Well, if that is the case, do you see that being something like a regular consumer, like an average Joe on the street would be interested in, or do you think that'd be kind of more reserved for us techies and us power users as only something that we would really see the value in? Because I can't, it sounds cool, there's no doubt this thing sounds like a boss if it did actually go from your phone to your desktop, but personally, just talking about it right now, I don't know if I could convince some random person to get a phone that's going to act as their computer. It just kind of seems like a tough sell for the average person looking for a phone on like AT&T or Verizon or something.
You're
I'll
not
tell
going
you-
to.
I'll tell you
You
where.
can sell it. You can sell it. I'm sorry, Tommy.
That's all right. I'll tell you where it wouldn't be a tough sell, and this is what I was thinking when I first heard about the Ubuntu for Android, which would run Ubuntu simultaneously alongside on the same kernel as Android, and then when you dock it, it would give you the Ubuntu, the full Ubuntu desktop, and that's anywhere that issues their employees, their essential employees, a smartphone.
Exactly.
Because they would be saving how much on every Windows license that they purchase, on every Windows desktop that has to be upgraded every 2 years at the very latest, I would think, in order to keep a functioning PC. You get them the phone and all the docking equipment, and then likely you'll only have to upgrade the phone, and all the docking equipment will still work, and they'd bring their phone to work and be able to work from their workstation with that phone. As long as they don't have to do any, high power processing, because that would save companies so much money, and then they wouldn't have to worry about their employees doing anything too personal on their phones because it's a Windows phone and nobody really wants to use it.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. And since huge percentage of corporations are fully vested in Microsoft as their lifeblood. The idea of getting one device that they can sell that's going to keep them from having to buy somebody a desktop, potentially a laptop, and a smartphone, all in one device is going to be huge.
Well, and
if they can pull it off.
and something that nobody else has really touched on yet tonight, except for Joe in passing, is the processor. They didn't choose to go with a Qualcomm. They didn't even choose to go with most of the lower-end Intel chips that some products will go with. They're going with an Intel Atom processor, which is powering many Chromebooks. So the processor of the phone itself is very similar to. I mean, it's not a desktop processor. Obviously, it's a mobile processor, but it's going to be a powerhouse for a cell phone. It's not like most processors we're seeing in cell phones now. It is going to, kick butt and take names, and especially with 4 gig of RAM. I mean, right there you're talking about, Chromebook specs, and Google Chrome is obviously one of the most, heavy and bloated things that you can run on a computer right now. So, if you're sporting the same specs as, a laptop, then the whole point of docking, which Chuck came back and he said it's Continuum, and it's a full-blown. It looks like it's a full-blown Windows 10 when it's docked. So if we're really looking for that, then the fact that we've got an Atom chip up to 4 gig of RAM and USB Type-C, so that way it's very fluid with just the different docking stations and different everything that we're going to start seeing from now. I could really see this, just as Tony was saying. This is a businessman's phone, which is where Microsoft has always aimed their phones at. Their phone, except for, a couple Lumias, and that wasn't even Microsoft. They've always been looking towards the businesses because that's where they know their bread and butter is.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like, that'd definitely be completely different from all the Windows Phone devices we've seen so far. So maybe that is the route that this operating system needs to go in, and Microsoft would for sure be the one to kind of lead that whole thing.
Yeah, and they demoed all this at Build 2015 this year, which is their developer conference. So they've already shown this Continuum and this technology off. We've just been waiting for the phones to support it, and I think this is going to be the first one. Yeah, so the specs of this phone is exactly what my Surface 3 has. Probably same, or it's probably a better Atom processor, 4 gigs of RAM. So it's my Surface 3 compacted into a phone.
Yeah, so if the Surface mobile phone turns out to be like your next kind of like mini desktop replacement, you heard it here first on Mobile Cup of Joe's What's Brewing. But moving on from that, though, we're going to kind of switch gears from Windows Phone and Microsoft to Google and Android, because a couple kind of bits of news for this past week. Android M finally got debuted. Well, first of all, we got the third developer preview of Android M. Didn't include a whole lot new. There was like a new boot screen for it, a couple new animations and some new wallpapers, but generally still the same stuff we saw in Developer Preview 3, aside from that, and numerous bug fixes throughout the operating system. But the biggest news for Android M is that we finally got the confirmation that Android M will be Android Marshmallow, if you couldn't tell by my little container of marshmallows and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Funko Pop back here. But that's even more interesting is that, yeah, so that's it was like $10 at Walmart or something, so it's like definitely worth it, and yeah, and I'll probably eat these marshmallows after the show because why not? So what's even more interesting though is that Android Marshmallow will be Android 6.0. So my question to you guys, along with, of course, what do you think about the new confection name for Android 6.0? What do you think about them making the gigantic jump from 5.0 Lollipop all the way to 6.0 Marshmallow? Because if you look at something like Ice Cream Sandwich 4.0, we had Jelly Bean, which was 4.1, and 4.2, 4.3. But we're going all the way from 5.0 to 6.0. So either of you guys go ahead and take it. Who's first? Looks like Tony wants to talk about it. What do you think about this big of a jump for Android?
I don't really understand, just because I'm running the developer preview. So unless they make some other pretty drastic changes in the final release, I don't see it as a big enough leap. It's not like going from gingerbread to ice cream sandwich, where it's like you're using a whole different operating system. But the one thing I did think that was interesting is that now in going to 6.0, they've made Lollipop. They've put Lollipop in ranks with Honeycomb. And Lollipop and Honeycomb are the two only versions of Android which had their I should say that the two only versions of Android which had their own number, their own complete whole number, which is interesting because Eclair Donut and Cupcake were both in one, so 1.5, 1.6 for Cupcake and then Donut. Same with Gingerbread. Froyo and Gingerbread 2.1, 2, and 3. Yeah, and then for 4.0, 1, and 2 and 3 were all Jelly Bean. So it's interesting to see that, and I have no idea why they're jumping. It's kind of odd they're jumping because they only got up to 5.1 officially with Lollipop. But who knows? Maybe they're jumping because they don't want people to ever look at their phone's build number and wonder if they have the stage fright fix or something like that. I mean, that could be part of the reason too. Like, hey, let's just leave this build behind. Everything's got stage fright 6.0 and up, or 5.1.1 and up. But that's the only real observation I had. They kind of made Lollipop into a redheaded stepchild.
What about you, Chuck? What do you think about this?
Version numbers don't matter. I'm just saying it. That's all there is to it. Version numbers don't mean a thing. Chrome, let's see, we're up to what, Chrome 50 now? We're up to Firefox 110. We went from, Windows XP to Windows 10, and Windows 10 is Microsoft says the last version number of Windows ever. There is no new releases of Windows. Windows is serviced as a platform now. Or software as a platform, sorry. So to me, version numbers, just get rid of the version numbers altogether. We had Lollipop, we have M, we'll have N, we'll have O, we'll have P, and I don't know what they'll do after Z. But you know what?
Make new letters.
Get rid of version numbers. Version numbers don't mean anything anymore because everyone just artificially inflates their version numbers, and no one cares about them.
And Apple has had how many different flavors of OS X now for how long is it? About 15 years.
Yeah. They're going on to 10.11. So.
What about you, Patrick? Are you team Tony and you want to take some interest in, or are you team Chuck that doesn't really give a crap about numbers whatsoever, even though it's ironic because he's ones and zeros?
I mean, it doesn't make sense that they would go to 6.0, but yet it does. I mean, and I've talked with a lot of people. As I said at the beginning of the show, I am a developer, so I mean, I do live on the code side of things. And code-wise, there's not much difference between 5.1 and 6.0. Between Lollipop and Marshmallow, you're looking at the same difference, code base-wise, basically between 5.0 and 5.1. There's not a whole lot there, but they're trying to rebuild it. They're trying to rebrand it. Lollipop was them going from gingerbread to ice cream sandwich. It was them going from Kit Kat to Lollipop. It was a huge jump. And they're trying to make it more user-friendly. Everything that they're doing in Marshmallow, is it's now called, is trying to become, and I'm going to get flamed for saying this, but Google is turning Android into iOS on their Nexus devices.
What?
They
How dare
are
you,
making
Patrick.
they're making it so drop dead simple. Go back and look at Ice Cream Sandwich. Go back and look at even Jelly Bean. And if you're running pure Android, it was cumbersome. It really was. And then they went to Lollipop, and they completely changed everything. They changed how it worked, how everything functioned. They made it simple. And they're trying to continue that trend, but they're also trying to get themselves as far away from the old versions of Android as they can, where people called Android, bug-ridden. They called it virus-ridden. They called it a terrible operating system. They're trying to separate themselves so far from that. So in that sense, it makes sense that they would go from 5.1 to 6, because they don't want to be close to 4.4 anymore. They want to separate themselves as far from that as they can, because that's when everybody called Android so virus-ridden. They called it the most virus everything, but it's not. And Google knows it, but consumers don't. So they're trying to turn Android, and like I said, I'm going to get so much flame for this, but they're turning Android into iOS, at least on Nexus and AOSP devices. Samsung can do whatever they want with TouchWiz.
And is that a bad thing? I don't think so.
No, it's not. It's not. But, the pure Android heads are going to kill me for that. But whatever.
Well, Patrick, I applaud you for being brave and showing your true feelings, but I apologize for all the comments on Google Plus you're going to get after this show.
Oh, yes, they're coming.
That's okay. You know what? If anyone can't see it, then they're blind.
Yeah,
So,
you're absolutely right.
What is the top-selling device in the U.S.? It's not Android. It's an iPhone. Go out and look. What do you see everyone that wants and everyone has? iPhones. So I'm not saying emulate the iPhone, but Google's making a step in the right direction to make Android more accessible and easier to use for the average, I'll just say it, stupid person.
Well, you're right too. I mean, even just from like a visual point of view too, you look at just from 4.4 Kit Kat to 5.0 Lollipop, and just like the aesthetics is tremendous. I think Alvie shared a screenshot or something in our chat like a couple months ago, something that was 4.4 Kit Kat, and it looked like ancient, like something that was just terrible. So even from just an aesthetic point of view, along with the general ease of use, yes, they are kind of following the Apple route and the iOS route, like Patrick said, but it really is the right move that Google needed to make for Android as a whole if they want to get more people to use the operating system. So going from that, though, well, first of all, before we close this conversation, what do you guys think about Marshmallow? Were you expecting milkshake or something else, or are you content with the Marshmallow name?
I am just happy that they didn't pick another brand name. I was fearing Milky Way or Mars Bar or something.
Oh, I totally wanted to, so I could go out and try and find them.
Well, until I'm still disappointed to get Android Milk Dud. That could have been a fun one.
Duds.
I'm sure there'd be a lot of sexual innuendos and jokes with that one, though. Going on from that, only by me. Well, I'll make some up tonight, and I'll share it with you guys on Google Plus tomorrow. Going on with that, though, Chuck's actually got a really interesting story with us that I teased earlier in the show to deal with NSA and AT&T with some spy impact they have. It sounds really complicated and really confusing, so I'm going to go ahead and hand over the host reins for Chuck for a few minutes so we can kind of debrief us on what the heck is going on with this whole thing right here.
Okay, well, I won't bore people too much. So, we've had the Snowden, I guess that's pronounced his last name. I don't know. You see all these people and you don't know how to pronounce their names. But anyway, the guy, who leaked a bunch of this stuff from the government, the NSA, and this is kind of one of his most recent leaks, and something we kind of assumed anyway, with all the NSA metadata collection that's kind of been going around, and the illegal spying on U.S. and metadata and what's this, that, the other thing. Well, he's kind of leaked another thing, basically saying that essentially AT&T has had a long-standing history with the NSA and essentially allowing them direct access to the pipes through AT&T. most of you guys, when you think of AT&T, you probably think of the wireless carrier, but you kind of got to go a little bit deeper than that, because AT&T also, originated from Ma Bell, who was the only person who owned all the telephone lines and the copper and everything else that's in this country. So AT&T still owns a tremendous amount of the backbone of the internet of this country. So the fact that basically they're allowing the NSA to come in and directly tap into their lines and pull out any data that they want means that they are getting an immense amount of data. Even if you're not an AT&T customer, you're not sending it to an AT&T customer, chances are very good that your packets are getting routed through an AT&T data center somewhere, before they reach their final destination. So if they're being routed through these data centers, that means that they're being picked off by the NSA. Well, supposedly, assuming this is still going on, which I wouldn't see any reason why it's not, for their perusal later, basically siphoning all this data, back to their headquarters, and then they can kind of do what they want with it. And apparently the pact between AT&T and the NSA was called highly collaborative, even so much that things have been leaked, basically, letters to NSA high-level officials, to basically saying that they need to be nice to AT&T, because AT&T has been very helpful in allowing us to do this thing, and they don't have to. So be very courteous when you're there, and very helpful and very nice to AT&T, because essentially it's allowing the NSA unfettered access to anything that they wanted, just because AT&T said, yeah, sure, let's go, let's do do your thing. There's a very good Wired article on it that I'll tweet out later that you definitely should go read. It has some more of the technical details, which I'm not going to get into, and kind of how they've done this. But it's very interesting. This just kind of goes in line with everything that's been leaked recently, just to really start opening the American public's eyes as far as what's going on that you really don't know about.
Yeah.
And Fred, I know you have something on this, because I know you're in the privacy like I am. So
well, I don't have the details on it like you do, but yeah, you and I have shared some perspective on this, which is interesting, because politically you and I kind of go off in different directions, but privacy is one of the places where we really overlap. Or maybe if you go around far enough in both directions, you meet up on the other side, so to speak. But I come from a bit of a different generation. I'm a child of the 60s. And, from where I stand, I've never had any reason to doubt that everything we do is being watched and listened to, especially in electronic communications. It's foolish to think otherwise. And I think most of us suspected, even before the leaks, that this sort of thing was going on, and it wouldn't happen without somebody like AT&T being a complicit participant. So it's one of the ugly sides of modern civilization, modern technology, but it's a reality of things. And as I've said to everybody, including my kids, from the time that everyone was able to start posting things on the internet and bulletin boards and so on, is that if you say something out there, if you post it someplace, and as we know, even if you say it on wired communications, it's like it's on the front page of the New York Times. It's out there. Everything you do is publicly visible.
Exactly. So, I mean, like Fred said, I mean, at this day and age, just with what you do, it's kind of obvious. Just keep in mind that someone out there has access to what you're doing online. Just kind of like a basic rule of thumb for the day and age you live in, the day and age we live in with the technology we have at our hands. So, no, not too surprising, but it's good. It's always good to follow up on these stories and just keep in the know about what's going on with all this kind of stuff. Because the more you know, the better you can kind of protect yourself if something does go awry that we really gotta really protect ourselves with.
And I won't go into the story, but it's especially true if you think you might want to break, let's say, the bonds of marriage and hope no one finds out about it. So just remember that someone will find out about everything that you do online.
But I mean, just something small that I wanted to add is, in this day and age, privacy is but a thought. It's but something that we all, think we have, and everybody gets mad. I have so many friends who come to me because, I'm the tech person at church. Everybody who has a technology question comes to me and they ask it. And I can't tell you how many times people come up, oh, did you hear about Facebook Messenger? Oh, did you hear how they're spying on you? Oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? People don't realize that you give these people permission. There is such thing as permissions access on both Android and iOS, and that is getting overhauled in Marshmallow. But there's also something called a terms of use, and you agree to it. As soon as you check that agreement box, it is as if you are signing a legal document saying, I agree to everything inside of this. Whether it says you can collect my emails or whether it says you know my home address. I agree to it, and nobody reads it. And then they get mad when the companies actually enforce what you gave them permission to enforce.
Yep.
And that's where everybody gets caught up today. Because, Facebook, yeah, they do use your microphone. They do. And, I've had people come at me, well, why does Messenger want access to my camera? Well, how do you expect to take a picture in Messenger and send it to a friend if they can't access your camera? I mean, so sometimes common sense comes into play.
Yeah.
But other times it's buried deep, deep, deep in the terms of use. And if you don't read it, it's not there. I've heard this story somewhere, and I don't know how true this is or not, but somebody in a terms of use wrote in that by accepting the terms of use, you then turn over the right of your firstborn child and your home or something like that. And then they tried to enforce it, and obviously they couldn't enforce it because that's ridiculous. But they did it to show that people don't read. Because had somebody read that, they wouldn't have checked that box and said, I agree to the terms of use. Obviously. But people just don't read, and they don't understand what they're getting themselves into when they sign up for an account, a service provider, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we've just kind of grown used to doing it so often. I mean, we've been making Google accounts for years now. We've been making, I made Yahoo accounts when I was, getting my first email. We've been making accounts for these services for so long, and we get phones and different devices and stuff and sign up for, this email service or, this social media, this social network website that no one, honestly, who's going to go through and read, pages on pages of legal documents? No one's going to, but then they get pissed when it's oh, well, you said yes to this thing. So, I mean, it's just self-awareness. You have to be aware of what you're doing. Don't get mad at this company when they're going to use your information when you gave them the legal right to do so. I mean, it's just a matter of, know what you're doing online. In 2015, I think it's kind of common sense that everybody should have the general consensus that you're giving a considerable amount of your privacy away when you're doing basically anything online at this point.
Exactly.
So, in the end, we have no privacy. The internet's going to take over, Skynet, all that. So,
So before we end, Joe, I did want to hit on one thing. We had a couple posts on our Google Plus page. Brandon mentioned that something we kind of missed over when we talk about the Windows 10 and things is that Microsoft is providing tools. We were talking about the app ecosystem. Microsoft is providing tools to easily port Android and iOS apps over to the Windows platform and even mostly run natively the existing apps. So Microsoft, is, I guess, taking more of an approach of, bring your apps over, we'll help you with the tools kind of thing. So just wanted to bring that up. That's something we did kind of forget to talk about.
Okay, cool. Well, awesome. Well, yeah, we'll definitely see how that turns out, and if any of our, discussion turns out to be true, we will take full credit for Microsoft for our genius, kind of brainstorming here for their next products. But that's going to about wrap it up here for tonight's show of What's Brewing. We'll go ahead and go through the Brew Crew and see what everybody's doing for this upcoming week. But again, a quick shout out to somethinggeeky.com. Check them out. Search Mobile Cup of Joe to get all of your officially licensed Mobile Cup of Joe merchandise. Hopefully some new products and colors for t-shirts coming up on the site very soon. But again, check them out, somethinggeeky.com. But now to close out our show, we'll go left to right once again for me. Ones and zeros, Chuck Haines. What is coming up with you this next week?
Not a whole lot. Lots of work, and not too much else. I do have a G-Watch Urbane review that I promise I'm going to get done and out on the site this weekend.
Okay. Yeah, after 5 months of you telling me you're going to get it done.
Yeah, I had it. I suck at life. What can I say?
Well, I mean, you went from Android to iOS. You haven't got your review up. I mean, we might as well just have this be your last show.
Yeah, probably.
I've fired I think everybody on here at least once. So I mean, it's bound to happen at some point, Chuck. Well, Patrick, you're fired. It's been fun to have you.
Well, this show isn't very friendly to iOS likers, so.
Well, we're going on from Chuck to back from the dead Fred and back to the audio Fred as he was earlier tonight. What's going on with you this next week coming up here?
I quit before you fired me, Joe. Just for the record. Not too much new here. Hopefully, I will be. I'm waiting for a replacement battery and charger for my X8C quadcopter, and hopefully, I will be airborne again. If not this weekend, early next week. And I guess that's about all the news that's fit to print up here. It's kind of a quiet season at the moment.
All right, and I'll go to Tony next because it looks like Patrick has something he wants to share with us when we close out with him. So, spec sheet Tony, any big plans coming up this weekend or this week coming up here?
No. I've been running a ROM based on the M preview, so probably just be poking around in that because I just got the version 3 or the second version 3 preview upgrade on that ROM. So checking that out, seeing if there's anything worth noting. And other than that, nothing much going on. Nothing coming up for me right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed this in the Android M preview conversation. The boot animation is really cool. The coolest. It is the coolest Android boot animation yet, if I may say so.
Well, I'll be very excited to. Oh, starting a live show.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it right now, just for our Hangout on Air viewers. So I apologize right now for all the podcast listeners, but just imagine the coolest, most awesome boot animation you've ever seen, and that's what I'm showing the viewers right now.
I feel like we need some dramatic music to go along with this. That is very cool.
And it's just going to do that for a little while until everyone stops watching the show.
Well, it's a nice little update on what they had with Lollipop.
It pretty much ends the same way as the Lollipop animation does. I don't know if it's going to go that quickly right now, but anyway, they bounce into the Android symbol, so I'll cut that short. But yeah, very, very cool looking boot animation.
All right, well, going on to Patrick from Gadget Spot, our special guest from the night who was fired before he was hired. What's going on with you this next week?
Not much. Going to Universal Monday. One of the perks of living in Florida. Week filled of work, working on development, working at my real job, and just kind of getting articles out, having a good old time. But Joe did have to mention Skynet, and for those of you who don't know, the NSA actually had a program called Skynet. So, kind of interesting. If you've not heard of it, look it up. It's not, the end of the world. It's not Terminator, whatever. It was just a program that they used. It was. Terminator is actually Alvie, and that's why he's not here tonight. But that's another show. Skynet was basically a way to intercept phone calls and use phone location and call metadata from call records to detect suspicious patterns. So it was an interesting program, but I just think it's kind of funny that the NSA actually had a program called Skynet. So.
Well, I think Tony has the head creator of Skynet with him right now.
He does.
Yeah, the future creator here.
This is our special guest crib sheet here.
Yeah. So he can't hear you guys right now. That's why he's looking around like, what is Dad talking to? He loves the microphone.
That's fantastic.
Say something to you. I'll make him laugh. Let's see if I can make him laugh while he's on air. Let me see. Yeah, my wife says he's too tired. Okay. Yep. All right. Well, from Spec Sheet and Crib Sheet, have a good night, everybody.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we'll actually leave it on that. Yeah. Follow us on the socials: Twitter, Facebook, Google+. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to us here at Mobile Cup of Joe, and we'll be back once again next week, next Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So go ahead and let Crib Sheet do our closeout, and then we'll go ahead and get off this thing. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.